Today we are going to explore the concept of prayer. Is it a science? Is it an art form? Or simply a mystical practice? Which of the three is it? Now, we have all pondered prayer from different angles since childhood. And some of us, have contemplated it at a superficial level, and some may have simply missed, various aspects of it because we just accept it as it's there, it fits in a certain category, and that's how we see prayer. So let us take a collective look at prayer today. Let's start with the definition of prayer. What does the published literature say? So here's a 3-point summary. 1, prayer is universally recognized as an act of communication directed at the sacred, whether it be God, divine blessings, or simply at a transcendent realm. It is often seen as religion's primary mode of expression, bringing the human and the holy together, bridging the two. Number 2, prayer is supplication through thoughts, words, or deeds. And prayer includes not only spoken words, but also intentional thoughts or actions aimed at petitioning the divine force or entity. And third is in certain scientific and philosophical frameworks, prayer is understood as the act of surrendering or yielding to a metaphysical higher power beyond the self. Now, these are all good and diverse definitions of prayer. And I'm sure you've also come across a lot more over the years, and there's so much out there on prayer. But I picked 3 that I thought were pertinent to today's conversation. So now let us dig into the dimensions of prayer a little deeper. I'd like to start by saying that, in my opinion, prayer is fundamentally a process of communication. It is fundamentally a process of communication. And as humans, we all have the need and the instinct of communication. Now, where we are today on the communication front, as a whole, where are we today? We are constantly bombarded with communications from everywhere in our material interactions. There's so much coming at us every second, and this shapes our mindset, our mood, emotional state, and how we experience life. But these are not communications that satisfy our inner instinct and need to communicate. They're just avalanches of information coming at us, ranging from good knowledge to valueless content and even nonsense at times. Today, we as a humanity are in an information overload state. Now, the next part of communication is hearing. And another essential need and instinct for all of us is to be heard. Today, when we speak to people, we find that their ability to hear what we are saying is limited because people across the globe are deeply in a self-absorbed state, and it is only getting worse. My friends, the need for being heard is innate to all of us. And unfortunately, our audience that fulfills this need is diminishing. And here I mean an audience that truly focuses on what we are saying and tries to understand us. That is getting more and more rare. While people may be physically with us and may appear to be listening to us, few are in fact hearing what we have to say. So this unfulfilled need for being heard is also growing within us in the form of an unhappy void, and we may not even be aware of it. It is affecting our physical, mental, and emotional state in adverse ways. Now, the accelerated deterioration of mental health in humanity is driven by a number of change-related factors, and an unfulfilled need for healthy communication is certainly one of them. So, my dear friends, we as a humanity today find ourselves with an unfulfilled instinct of communication. And this creates deeply negative voids, leaving us unhappy. And as I said earlier, in most cases, we are unaware of the source of this unhappiness, but it is present and it is real. Barely a handful of people today can deny the presence of such a deeply rooted, unexplained sadness in our being. It exists. It is just there in the background, lowering our spirits day by day. Of course, such unhappiness also has other sources, but I am pointing to one of the key ones that is absolutely solvable through prayer. And prayer, as I said earlier, provides a platform for free and deeper communication, which can play a very important role in extricating the voids of unhappiness from our being. Prayer gives us a stage where we can communicate in deeper and more fulfilling ways. Prayer enables us to speak freely with the very life force that exists in every cell in our body, and be heard without interruption in an atmosphere where material chaos is absent. This life force is synonymous with our source or creator, who we refer to in so many different ways. Now, in 1995, when I was writing my first book, I was blessed with an experience of understanding how creation comes together. What is oneness? And I realized that we are all one. Each one of us, if we look at ourselves as individuals, each one of us has our roots in this oneness. So we are all completely connected. And these roots, where our roots reside, is in fact the source of our life force. We draw life energy from there, we live from there, we draw inspiration, we draw everything that we need in our material life from that level of life force of our Creator. Now, we have called our Creator by different names depending on our faith, our beliefs, our traditions. Some call the Creator God, some Allah, some Christ, some Krishna, or Bhagwan, or so many different names. And these names all are ascribed to that one singular source. Those of us who do not subscribe to a religion or any religious belief, or even we, look at the source of our creation as the origin, the universe, because we all at the end of the day believe that we have a source. And what I realized was this is a common source where all our roots are embedded. Now, this is why when we do meditate, we focus on a word which is the name of our source. I call it the linkage word. But what is the significance of this name? When we bring in a thought in meditation and invoke this name is of a very high vibration because it is completely supported by our belief, deep belief, that this is indeed the name of our Creator. And this name resonates within our entire being. And so the thought of the name of our Creator has immense power, immense vibration. It is a very, very special thought, and we will be talking more about it. So during prayer, we get the opportunity to speak with our Creator, who is of infinite intelligence. Some may ask, how do we know that we are being heard? It's a logical question. We are all beings of intellect and intelligence, and therefore are able to communicate on the basis of thought. And this is not something new. We all know this. Thought is our fundamental basis of communication. It is a fundamental fact that makes us the special creation that we are. A creation endowed with the ability to think, articulate our thoughts, and receive the thoughts of others in response. This is our basic way of communication. In prayer, our communication also relies on thought, and the recipient, who is far more intelligent than any other being, receives our thoughts through every single cell and every element of our bodies and being. I mean, for those who amongst us who are unsure, I would say that this includes the very cells that make up your ears, whose sounds you believe in. So in prayer, we are talking about addressing a theater with 1,000% perfect acoustics. 1,000% perfect acoustics, where there is a zero chance of not being heard, and not a single thought or word is missed in this theater. So in a nutshell, when we practice prayer, three things happen. First, we communicate within ourselves in a state that invokes calmness, confidence, and peace. Second, we communicate with our Creator or higher self within the same atmosphere of calmness and peace and more. And this brings further peace, hope, strength, and happiness. Beautiful communication. And this happiness fills the voids we suffer from as a result of our unfulfilled communications at the material level. So prayer plays a very important role. Now, when you are able to communicate at this deep level and be heard with total clarity, that innate need of communication finds fulfillment, which in itself generates constant happiness, peace, clarity, and well-being. And third, in prayer, we also communicate with our fellow beings and all creation around us through collective consciousness. Now, when we think of collective consciousness, as I said earlier, the fundamental basis for our creation is thought. And as we think, we emit thoughts. Our thoughts have energy. Our thoughts have life. As we communicate, our thoughts germinate in the hearts and minds of others. And through our thoughts and actions, we get responses that trigger events, and that's how our life works. Collectively, all of us put together form what is called the collective consciousness, a very powerful aspect of life in this world that we all belong to. We are part of a collective consciousness. And prayer forms a network of powerful thoughts that permeate our collective consciousness. You can imagine it like a neural network that connects with humanity and nature at large. Think of it as a neural network. And prayer is an integral part of that. And this is why collective prayer can be so powerful. It fuels this network in unstoppable ways. And remember, every human being and creature is a part of this network. Furthermore, at an energetic level, the thoughts we emit in prayer have an energy of tranquility, peace, clarity, and more, which flows from us to all our fellow beings and creation. And through our collective consciousness, that's the key. Through prayer, each one of us serves as a positive force that nurtures and enhances our world, humanity, and creation at large. So we play a very important role. We serve the collective consciousness with the power of our positive thoughts through prayer. If only we knew how powerful an impact each one of us has on the well-being of the collective. It's amazing. One may ask, does scientific evidence exist on our power of thought? I would say yes, absolutely it does exist. And on a number of webinars, I've talked about the works of the Japanese scientist Masaru Emoto. where he takes petri dishes, puts water in it. Water is one of the most intelligent elements on the planet. He puts water in it, takes a thought written down on a piece of paper, places it under the petri dish, but the energy and vibration of those thoughts are now interacting with water. Then he drops the temperature to, I think, -12 or -20, I'm not sure, until it forms ice. And then he photographed the crystals of the ice that the ice is formed into. And in his works, and I've shared his pictures before, and we have a number of videos on our YouTube channel that you can reference. But prayers or thoughts that are positive form perfect crystals because their energy is cohesive. And thoughts that are negative, like he put words like, I hate you, I will kill you, all you see is chaos in the water. It doesn't even form proper crystals. So the scientific evidence is that thought has energy, vibration, and life. He expressed it through water. Now, Emoto also photographed water after prayer, and he has a number of photographs. You can check him out online on prayer in different places with water. And this water shows incredible crystals that transpired from the thoughts of prayer. So when we pray, we are emitting great powers into the collective consciousness and within ourselves. So yes, there is plenty of scientific evidence today. In the past, when I was growing up in the 1960s, our technology was less advanced, and such evidence was not readily available. Therefore, people based their prayers on pure belief in those days. But today, that belief is supported by plenty of evidence. And I will also share some quantum science-based evidence with you in a few moments. So in a nutshell, prayer at its root is a deeply enriching form of communication that brings experiences of peaceful and empowering energies that grow within us and flow from us to others, all of creation. And so, my dear friends, prayer plays a fundamental role in our lives. And those of us who do not practice prayer may find the journey in this material world more difficult, in the absence of the fundamental fulfillment that cannot be derived through material level interactions. Many great souls and spiritual teachers have said, and I paraphrase, that without prayer, the experience of true happiness, which can be our blessing to experience, will never touch our hearts. And this is a theme that flows across the board. And this, in my opinion, is pure and timeless wisdom. And I hope our discussion thus far has shed some light on their powerful message. And this is what I believe makes prayer universal in humanity. It is present across humanity. It exists in every culture, from structured religious rituals to silent meditations and even moments of gratitude in nature. There's a very important distinction I wish to make today about prayer. Contrary to popular opinion, prayer is not confined to religion. It is a human instinct to connect beyond ourselves. And while religion may prescribe prayer and its rituals, it is important to realize that prayer is a universal right of each being, whether he or she practices a religion or not. It is a deep and very personal inner communication with our own being and our Creator. It is a very private and sacred matter that is unique to each of us. So the common misrepresentation that prayer comes from religion is erroneous, in my opinion. It cannot be further than the truth. Prayer is practiced by all schools of higher thought, be it religion, or just plain universality, or be it through simple personal choice. Having understood prayer as being a fundamental form of communication, let us now explore some broader aspects of prayer, starting with the scientific aspects of prayer and its core underlying belief system. Let us start with the belief system, which is that when we pray, we are communicating with our source, which, as I explained earlier, is synonymous with our life force that is of infinite intelligence, life force that is present in every cell in our being. So when we pray, that's the level we are communicating at. Now, I've had several young people ask for proof of the existence of this source or life force. And here's an analysis I've shared with them, and I think I've shared it with you in a previous webinar. But let's say you and your best friend, let's say you're two women, you're standing next to each other, and let's say I am looking at the two of you. I can tell which one is you and which one is your friend. Then we say, okay, let's go down one level. I'd like to compare your arms, your hands. So I take a picture of your arm and the arm of your friend. Maybe I can still tell which one is which because of its size, because of, discerning factors. And then we say, okay, let's go one level lower. Let's take an X-ray of the bone. Now we are looking at an X-ray of the bone of your arm and that of your friend. Maybe I can still tell the difference from its size. So we say, all right, let's take an MRI, which is basically photographing sections of your bone. Now we have gone down to such a small minutia. Now I can't tell whether it's your bone or it's your friend's. I cannot tell the difference. Then we say, okay, let's go even further down to a quantum level. Let us take a section of both your bones, each one of you, and look at it under this electronic microscope that goes down to quantum level. What do I see? I see particles moving in your section and in your friend's section. The beauty is these particles are absolutely identical. I can't tell the difference between the two. And then, for added measure, I take a section of a rock and take it down to that level and look at it under the quantum microscope. What do I see? I see the same particles as the particles in your bones. Now let's throw one more curveball in it. Let's throw moon dust into the microscope. You're going to see exactly the same quantum particles moving. So quantum science shows us true oneness. What I recognized in 1995 as a blessing, today quantum science shows that we are all one, that our particles are the same. There's absolutely no difference. And this is where we come to the concept of life force and creator. Because when you look at those particles, what are they doing? They are moving. They are constantly moving with their own rhythms. What is making them move? What is making the section particles of your bones and that of your friend and that of a rock and that of a meteor and that of moon dust? What is making all of them move? What is giving them life? That is life force. And that's what flows in all of us. And what is the source of this life force, which is oneness? That's what we call as our creator. So the energy that these particles derive for their motion comes from our source, our creator. So there is absolute scientific proof about this. And what this quantum level also shows us is what is oneness. You can see it physically. But it also shows the interconnectivity between each one of us, between nature, between us and the universe, between us and the meteors. We are all tightly interconnected because our particles are one and the same. At one point, they used to call the particle the God particle, but the science has moved on since, as more instruments show that actually They carry absolutely the same signature, and their motion is a motion of life force. Okay? So this is scientific evidence. And when you come to prayer, because whatever you choose to call this energy that moves the particles, there is no doubt that it exists, and you can see it in action. And when we pray, we are engaging also at that level. So if you consider prayer at the quantum level, it is basically the energy of your thoughts communicating with the force that drives all the particles of oneness. Your thoughts are communicating with that infinite reservoir of energy that drives all the particles. That is prayer. It's very profound. It's very beautiful. It's very deep. It's very powerful. Prayer has also further scientifically demonstrable benefits. Scientific studies have explored the effects of prayer and meditation on the brain, the nervous system, and even healing. It has been shown to reduce stress and enhance resilience, which has been visibly demonstrated via measurable changes in brainwave patterns. Prayer has also been shown to induce measurable psychological relaxation, lowering the heart rate, reducing tension, and calming breathing. And prayer activates the beneficial physiological process, such as providing structure, meaning, and hope. So what a beautiful gift we all possess. And that which we possess is actually our right, irrespective of the religion we follow. It is our right, it is our gift, and we should make the most of it. Now, many years ago in London, Karima and I attended the premiere of a movie that was called What the Blip Do We Know? What the Blip Do We Know? And you can check it out online. And there, these scientists have put together evidence, data, and reports, but they talk through it. And they talk of one instance where a group of meditators went to New York, and they measured the crime rate, and I'm talking many years ago. They measured the crime rate before the meditation, and then as these people got there and participated in meditation and participated for several days, the crime rate actually went down. When they left, the crime rate went up. What caused that? It was them, the power of their prayer, the power of their energy. It was influencing the quantum particles of all the people in New York. And that influence of peace and calmness and tranquility even reduced the crime level. People were less motivated to commit crime. So there is evidence of that as well, empirical evidence. So I hope the scientific aspects that I've just shared here can help fill some of the rationality gaps for those who are still sitting on the fence, where prayer and its role and benefits are concerned. There's plenty of evidence, my friends. Now that we've looked at prayer from a scientific perspective, let us briefly consider the artistic dimensions of prayer. Here, prayer, my friends, can be seen as an art form. It is a deeply personal expression of creativity, longing, and devotion. Just like painting or music, prayer can carry rhythm, beauty, and emotion. And this highlights the individual and cultural diversity in how prayer is practiced. Remember, we said earlier that prayer is universal. Prayer encompasses art forms like music, singing, chanting, and dancing, for example. We see it practiced in temples, churches, and most houses of worship, where songs and hymns are recited, accompanied by beautiful music and choirs. We are all familiar with this serene practice, and the richness of our diverse cultures finds profound expression in such practices. For those who do not belong to organized religions and believe in nature and ascribe to universal principles, they too are not missing anything, because Mother Nature has her own beautiful mosaics of colors, vibrancy, music, and movement. For example, the sounds and movement of flowing water, visually so powerful, sonically so beautiful, and they have a rhythm. And as you engage with that rhythm, you hear it, you see it, you feel it. Or the singing of birds, or the rustling of leaves and trees in the wind, and the colorful displays of some of the most incredible creatures, from butterflies to birds and animals, including marine life. All these creatures are adorned with the most intricate forms, colors, sounds, and artistic expressions. And all artistic dimensions of nature can also be conformed or can also be used to pray for one who focuses on and engages with them. That is prayer as well, engaging with nature, because it leads you to oneness of nature. So, my dear friends, human evolution thus far projects the artistic dimension of prayer through rituals. Now, we all know what rituals are. They help shape our thinking and focus by taking the abstract aspects of our spiritual dimensions and bringing them down to a physical form of practice and expression. That's what good rituals are. And that is what we call the exoteric practice of prayer. Now, exoteric rituals are largely human-made, and hence they are logically open to flaws as well. And this is also recognized in the scriptures. For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, and I paraphrase because I cannot recall the exact words, but he says that one who is devoted to me, even if misguided through erroneous teaching, always finds his way to me, because it is his devotion that counts the most. So there's an acknowledgement of that. So there are rituals that can be very helpful and some less useful. But it is our choice. And I believe we are best served by working with the rituals that we are comfortable with, that resonate with us, that help us achieve the focus and discipline that we need. Now, I have a very simple view of how I personally choose my rituals. I practice rituals that lead me from the exoteric or external tangible practice to the esoteric, which is internal, spiritual, and non-tangible. I'll repeat that. I practice rituals that lead me from the exoteric or external tangible practice to the esoteric, which is internal, spiritual, and non-tangible. Let me give you an example of the purpose a ritual serves. And let's look at the example of dancing. So when you start to learn to dance, you have to learn where to put your foot. Left foot forward, right step backwards, sway your hips, whatever. You learn the steps. That is the role of the ritual, to teach you the steps. So you are at the level of the exoteric, tangible, external level. Now, once you master the dance, at that point, you have to let the ritual go as you flow with the music. Now you have gone from the exoteric to the esoteric, and that esoteric part is the flow of the music. And as you flow with the music, you're not thinking about whether your left foot is forward and right foot is backwards, because you will not be able to do the dance. But if you let the ritual go, then you flow with the music, and it has delivered you from the exoteric to the esoteric. This is how I choose my rituals. And I believe that a good ritual is self-diminishing. When the pupil has learned, the ritual is not necessary. It should not be imposed, because that will hold the pupil back. So a good ritual is self-diminishing in nature. And we all get to choose what works for us. And this brings us to the next aspect of prayer, which is the esoteric aspect. Now, the esoteric dimension of prayer is considered to have less physical expression and more internal discourse that draws upon the intellect, pure focus, and thoughts leading to higher realms of our being, the spiritual realm. This is where meditation comes in. We have numerous videos on our YouTube channel explaining meditation, its practice, how to build focus, and lots more. So I won't go into meditation now, but go take a look at these videos, revisit the website, because I've covered meditation from a very broad and deep angle. So in essence, meditation can be practiced with different objectives, depending on your personal preference. It can either be practiced purely for relaxation and mental well-being, or it can be practiced in the form of a higher spiritual search for the essence of our creation, our source, our creator. This is an esoteric form of prayer that leads to oneness and recognizing oneness at a very deep spiritual level. However, it is important to recognize that esoteric prayer is not restricted to focused meditation with our eyes closed. No, it's a lot broader than that. When I was blessed with this understanding of oneness in 1995, I recognized that meditation that connects a being to oneness can also be practiced in nature itself, where one can seek the extraordinary in the ordinary. The ordinary being the physical form, and the extraordinary being the essence or life force that underlies the physical form. For example, when you take a walk in a forest or garden and free your mind of all material thoughts and worries and anxieties, you will find the garden appearing different. When you look at a tree or a flower and focus on it, seeking the essence that lies within it, you will experience its physical form change. You will see and feel a vibrance emanating from the tree or flower, a vibrance that comes from its essence, uniting you with its life force. That, in fact, is an experience of the extraordinary in the ordinary. So meditation can also be practiced in this way, by seeking to connect with life energy that is present in nature's creation, which is the same life energy flowing within all of us. So that also leads us to oneness. And this is another art of prayer that leads us to oneness, by recognizing oneness of creation. So esoteric prayer can have a physical dimension, or it can also have an internal dimension as well. The practice of yoga has deep esoteric roots, and you are all familiar with yoga, a very empowering practice that engages the body, mind, and the soul. Then there is the Sufi form of practice that connects the external and the internal. And we've been fortunate enough to visit Sufi dervish ceremonies, and there's one particularly in the city of Konya, where Maulana Rumi was born and lived. And we attended this ceremony called the Sema ceremony, and watch all these dervishes rotating in anti-clockwise mode. And you could see that while they're physically moving, they're also connecting with a much higher level. You also see tears flowing through their eyes. So they are in motion like the particles in the universe, but they are also completely connected with the source of creation. And very beautiful music is played that even when you close your eyes and you listen to that music, you will find yourself flowing. So that's another form of esoteric prayer. So esoteric prayer, whether it be external or internal, has roots of mysticism. Let's discuss mysticism for a few moments in this context. From a mystic's perspective, prayer is a gateway to transcendence, i.e. the extraordinary. It's a gateway to the extraordinary. It is a way of aligning the soul with the divine or universal consciousness. It is a search for the limitless love, that which emanates from the soul. We have a very good video on our YouTube channel explaining this limitless love, including a guided meditation that helps us connect with it. So look that up, because that's also one of the greatest gifts we have been blessed with. Let's seek it, let's find it, let's embrace it. So what is the universal consciousness, you may ask? Human consciousness, as I explained, is underpinned by thoughts of the material level. Thoughts that we all receive and emit through our constant material interactions. And collectively, these thoughts make up human consciousness. The universal consciousness, on the other hand, is comprised of enlightened thought. And such thought is founded upon the energies and vibrations of life force in its entirety, i.e. the Creator. Such enlightened thought is of a far higher level than thought that makes up human consciousness. And in deep esoteric meditation, one seeks to embrace this powerful thought through pure focus and a deep longing for engagement with the ocean of enlightened thought, i.e. the universal consciousness. This is a subject we can spend hours discussing, probably a good topic for a future webinar, the universal consciousness. So now let us conclude by moving to an important question that is often asked about prayer. Do our prayers get answered? Does prayer change anything? Or is it just wishful thinking? Lots of people have such doubts, and something we should acknowledge and respect. So let us explore these questions further. You see, when we pray, we reach out to our source and also simultaneously implant our thoughts into the collective consciousness. That's what we are doing when we pray. And these thoughts don't always have to be of a selfish nature. Prayers for the betterment of all creation can be very powerful and positive. And all those of us who participated in the shift group have experienced this, because we've gone to different parts of the world and meditated and connected with people from all over the globe, and you feel that energy, you feel that presence. It's very powerful. So prayers for the collective is extremely powerful. However, since we have all learned and been taught that the Creator is all powerful and kind, the element of selfishness creeps in very quickly. And we start praying with personal expectations. And it is totally fine to do so, because we are human. This leads to the question, do prayers get answered? I would say yes, they do, from my experience. But the answer may not always fit our desires. So let me share two examples with you to illustrate this point. One of them being my own personal experience. When I was growing up, it was in the early 70s, we lived on a farm in Kenya. And that year we had a very severe drought. Now, my family, my parents had invested every penny they had into this farm. And they had laid out all their capital into planting tomatoes and planting the whole farm with market vegetable seedlings. And these were beginning to dry. And I remember coming home from school and my mother saying that we have to do something and she used to run the farm. We have to do something because without water we will lose our crop. And if we lose our crop this year, we literally have no money left. And she said, let us sit down and pray. So my father, mother, my brother, and I, we sat down, and she led the prayer. Very, very beautiful prayer. And in that prayer, we invoked the blessing of rain. We prayed for rain. And I can still remember that shift I felt in my soul during that prayer. The next day, woke up in the morning, we've had a huge rain shower. Huge. So we're looking at each other going, wow, this prayer was incredible, it worked. And so as we are driving to town, to my school, we stopped on the way to pick up the neighbor's son because we used to give him a ride to school. It was about 20 kilometers from school. And so, my father was celebrating and he said, "Thank God we had rain." And this kid's father looks at my father and says, "Is this a sick joke?" And he said, "No, it rained heavily last night." And the man said, "No, there was not even a drop of water." When we came back in the evening, we walked around and literally that cloud had dropped water, showered water on our farm, but it was only a few meters on each side, and then there was still no more water. That was the year we had a bumper crop. That was the year we were able to find our grounding financially and grow further from there. Now, when I look at what happened that day, I realize that the experience of praying for rain under such dire circumstances was one of the defining moments of my spiritual journey. And maybe that too in itself was an answer to the prayer. So you may pray for one thing, but it comes back in vast, very broad forms. So we had a direct response to our prayer. Now, let me share with you another example of a king, and he has only one son who is his heir. And this son loves to ride horses. And he rides his horse very, very fast. And one day he falls off the horse and breaks his legs. Now the king is very distraught because it's his only son, the heir to the throne. And so the king prays that the legs of his son be healed and restored, and that his son should not lose his legs. But unfortunately, his prayer was not answered in that time frame, and his son lost both his legs. So the king was very dejected, very upset. Fast forward 8 months, there's a war, a battle. His kingdom has been attacked by a neighboring state. Now, since he was too old to lead the army, and his son had no limbs, he sent his general, and they fought a very tough battle, but lost. And per custom in those days, the leader of the army was always executed, beheaded. And so his general was beheaded. And his army came back broken, but he was deeply, deeply grateful that his son was still alive, that he had an heir to his throne, that he would rebuild again. Now, if his prayer had been answered and his son's legs had recovered, he would be the one leading the army. You know exactly what would have happened to him. So the king's prayer was answered 8 months later, but with a much better outcome than what he was praying for. So like I say, sure, he was upset that his prayer was unanswered. But in fact, after he could see the whole picture, he was eternally grateful that his heir was spared. So I think we need to ask the real question before we look at do prayers get answered. And well, let's ask the real question. What are we in this world for? Why are we in this world? And we've done many webinars on this topic, but let me encapsulate this for you in the context of prayers being answered. Let us talk about a soul named Maya, and she is planning to come to our world to experience this world and to grow and gain knowledge and fill in the gaps in knowledge that she has as a soul. So Maya has chosen a path to gain the knowledge that she seeks. And once she does that, and you should see the videos on karma, karmic compass, because it explains this in great detail. But once she has chosen what she wants to accomplish, she is born. And circumstances and events are now set in motion. And her life on earth unfolds according to what was her plan. However, over time, Maya does not like what she is going through and wants to change, wants it all to change. But now she is governed by a low-level material mind, so she has no clue of what the big picture is with respect to what she has come here to achieve. Therefore, with very limited information, Maya starts praying for change. Now, if the change she seeks, still keeps her on course, then great. She receives a positive answer to her prayer. Although one can argue that such a change was also part of her plan. But if such a change takes her away in a direction where she is never going to meet the person she needs to encounter, who will deliver to her the love she yearns for, the love she has come for, then she is not going to achieve her goal in this world. In this case, she may find that her prayer remains unanswered, like what happened in the story of the king and his heir. Maya is shattered in that moment because she prays for the love of this man that she thought would be her soulmate. She's shattered in the moment. But she is patient, and she does believe that whatever comes her way will be for the best. So she stops trying to force the change. Now, was Maya's prayer a waste of time? Certainly not, because her prayer did impact her in more than one way. I mean, as the story goes, she did ultimately end up finding the love she came for and had an extremely fulfilling life. But when I said her prayer did impact her in more than one way, what does it mean? You see, prayer leads to transformation of the self. And this transformation shifts how we experience and view the world. It brings us strength and hope, which leads to clarity. Clarity that can help us find better solutions than what we may be praying for. So for sure, Maya's prayer, whilst not answered instantly the way she wanted, did transform her and prepare her for the ultimate prize of finding love. That transformation and growth came through many disappointments all along the way that taught her to value and cherish love. It prepared her to be mature enough to sustain the price of love and not lose it through triviality, which was one of her big flaws. Had love come to her sooner, when she prayed for it, she may not have been able to keep it due to her lack of maturity and preparedness. In this world, many find love in their lives but fail to sustain it. And in Maya's case, while her life was filled with disappointments, she constantly strengthened herself through regular prayer that prepared her for the best possible outcome she could ever have hoped for. Another important point to remember is how our prayers get answered. It is through people and events that we attract through our prayer, and not through magical flashes in the sky. So the new encounters we attract lead us to better solutions, which, when we look back, we are very grateful for. And this reminds me of a real life situation of this group of friends who decided about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, to go into business together and do things that would have been earth-changing, changing the way our environment functions. Very profound. So 2 of them were big, had a lot of experience in the world of finance. So they assumed the role of getting the capital. Then there's another one who was a technical man. So he would source the technology. The other was strong in management. So as a group, they put together a really impressive plan. And from time to time, I had the good fortune of looking at their plans and mentoring them to some extent. But when they started, they had the best intentions in the world, and they put in so much effort, but the funding would not come. And they were all dejected and down because they felt that their prayers were not being answered. They were praying and they were saying, when do we get our break? And time went by. And 3 years later, now their funding finally began to come. But it is coming at a time when they are far better prepared for success. The wrong people in their path have disappeared over the 3 years, and they've been replaced by much better and robust ones. Their network has grown. Their choice of solutions has grown. Their ability to sustain what they had set out to do today, I give them a very high chance of success. But it took 3 years. And, several of them saying, I just don't believe in prayer anymore. And that's fine. But today, when it finally comes to them and they look, they go, wow, if we had gotten involved with those projects and those situations and those people, we wouldn't have gone very far and we would spend the rest of our lives battling our way out of the mud. So this brings us, when we think of answers to our prayers, we must be cognizant of the age-old word opportunity cost. What is opportunity cost? When you decide to do something, you decide to enter into a transaction or a business or a career, there's an opportunity cost to engaging with something. And that cost is that if you are doing this, it engages you so fully that you are unable to do something better that comes your way. So you have to be very sure about what you want to do, because you are paying a price, and that price is opportunity cost. So in these people's case, they would have paid a massive opportunity cost if they had found funding 3 years ago. But today, even the range of opportunities they're working with have grown. So answer to prayers, you have to look at it from a much wider context. It's not I pray today and you give me what I ask for tomorrow. No. There has to be patience. There has to be humility. There has to be a mindset of acceptance that whatever comes your way is the best for you. And finally, as for the comment, is prayer a waste of time? I would ask the question, what would you do in the alternative? Let's say you don't pray. What would you do with that extra time? Watch TV? Go out with friends and have some drinks? Do other things? What would you finally gain from this extra time? And what could you have potentially lost by not praying? We're not talking about investments of hours in prayer. We're talking about minutes. We're talking about giving up the opportunity of developing a transformed mindset that makes you more peaceful and endowed with greater clarity, through which you can realize your full potential. That's what you're giving up. And what are you getting in exchange? It's simple mathematics. Figure it out. But that's something to consider. So in conclusion, my dear friends, prayer brings us numerous benefits. The most important one being filling the voids of unhappiness due to lack of fulfillment of our instinct and need for healthy communication. Number 2, prayer transforms us and strengthens us in ways where we can cope with our lives much better. Number 3, prayer brings hope, peace, confidence, happiness, clarity, fulfillment, and more into our lives. Who doesn't need that? And number 4, I would say that prayer is one of our greatest blessings. It is our right, and we should exercise this right in whatever way resonates best with us. And I leave you with this thought. Actually, we're concluding on time. I leave you with this thought. There is a garden, and you are one of the rose bushes. The gardener waters and nourishes you every day, and that is why you're alive. So be grateful for that. And if your branches and thorns start growing in ways that can cause you harm, let the gardener trim them. Accept the pain, for it leads you to living happily in the garden until it is your time to leave, rather than being cut down for being a nuisance to his visitors. So let the gardener trim and trimming is painful, but it leads you to that complete, fulfilling life, and trying to avoid that and growing your bushes and thorns in multiple directions may bring you, or may lead you to being cut down. So, prayer is your platform for communicating with the gardener and with all your fellow plants. Use this platform as frequently as you can and thrive from it. And if you ever think prayer is a waste of time, ask yourself, what is the alternative and where does that lead me? So I'd like to conclude, and I'd like to thank you all for your presence, for bringing your light, your positive energy to today's webinar. I hope you're leaving with food for thought, and I hope that the understanding of prayer has taken on a deeper dimension in your lives. So I pray that you may all be blessed by our Creator with love, light, and immense happiness, that our Creator may always be with you to help you, guide you, love you, and care for you, and inspire you. Stay happy and blessed and smiling always.